you were on the Yankee squad, you would have to be clean cut, Mike.
I know, but I could have that mustache like Thurman Munson. I'm just glad to get an end date. I'll get back to my normal schedule.
Mike, remember we talked about we got to move the light and power stuff up above the budget.
Yep.
Well,
Marty, you're up.
with that, it is 7 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the Board of Zoning and Appeals. Could I have a roll call, please, Sue?
Yes. Board Member Canfield,
Here.
Board Member Salzweedl,
Here.
Board Member Yankovic,
Here.
Board Member DeVore,
Here.
and Chair Chambers.
Here. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion to approve the agenda.
I will support.
Sue, we have a first and a second. Can we have a roll call, please, on that?
Board Member Canfield,
Yes.
Board Member DeVore,
Yes.
Board Member Salzweedl,
Yes.
Board Member Yankovic,
Yes.
and Chair Chambers.
Yes. Mike, do we have any citizens that would like to make some comments on them? Not on the agenda?
If anyone wants to, they can raise their hand on their participant tab or *9 if you called in. And I'm not seeing anything.
Okay, then we'll move on to new business. We're going to open the public hearing for a variance application for 1242 East Main Street. Andy, would you like to start us off on this, please?
Yep. So it's been a little while since we've done a variance here in the city. The applicant in this case is proposing an accessory building, and there are two variances being requested, and there's a third that we'll need to discuss. So the two variances being requested is one, that he is proposing to build an accessory building in his front yard, and that is not permitted by the zoning ordinance. And the second requirement that he's asking for a variance from is there's a standard in the ordinance that requires any new accessory building be serviced with a paved driveway that goes from the road all the way to the accessory building. The subject property is 1242 East Main Street. And so what we're going to do here is we will run through the variance standards. And Marty, I don't know if you want to accept public comment prior to me running through these standards or after, but this is a public hearing, so we will need to accept public comments on this application.
Yep, so I know Sue's got a letter or two. So
Yes.
let's go ahead and read them, and we'll open it up to the public. If they have any comment on this, we'll take that at this time.
Okay. This letter is in response to a public notice regarding a variance request for 1242 East Main and to a hearing being held on May 18th, 2020. I am immediately the adjoining property owner at 1132 East Main. I completely support all aspects of Ryan Gold's request for the variances listed in the subject line. Since Ryan has purchased the property, he has continually improved it. Trash has been removed and brush has been cut. The old decrepit trailer has obviously been removed and will be replaced by a substantial permanent structure, adding to Lowell's stock of desirable riverfront residential properties. If I can supply any additional information to support in favor of these variances, please do not hesitate to call me. Best regards, Steve Parker. And I have one more short one. I have no problem with the variances to the zoning ordinance concerning Ryan Gold. Brenda Sliverman, I'm not 100% sure on that last name. She is at 1225 East Main Street. Please go ahead and build. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. Andy, if you would please, if we don't have anybody else.
Okay, so with a variance request, what we have to do, so the third request that we need to talk about is the size of the building. So the ordinance has a maximum limit on the size of an accessory building at 1,200 square feet. And the applicant is proposing an accessory building with an area of 1,600 square feet. So what we're going to do is there are a handful of standards in the zoning ordinance that we need to review this against. What I'm going to do is I'll summarize the standard, then I'll give you my thoughts on each of the three requests, and then if there's a just kind of general consensus amongst the board on each one, we'll just kind of make a note of that and then continue on. And then after we go through the standards, we'll need a motion from the board to either approve or disapprove the request. I will point out to you that in order to grant a request, you must find that all of them have been met. So if there's 5 standards, if they meet 4 out of 5, you still have to deny it because they must meet all 5. So with that in mind, let's get started. The first standard states that there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zoning district. This property is a bit unique in that, one, it's a kind of big for what's in the city, and secondly, it's a riverfront property. It is almost entirely within the 100-year floodplain, and that does create some potentially pretty serious limitations to what you can do with your property. So the variance where he is requesting that the structure be built pretty close to the road, he's building that as far up towards Main Street as he can to be out of the floodway, or to be as far away from the floodway and the floodplain as he possibly can be. And that logic continues on for the second request, which is that that paved driveway. Again, the city, and I think generally we're looking to minimize impervious surfaces and minimize fill within the floodplain. So looking at reducing the amount of impervious surface in that area and reducing the amount of fill that might be needed and the amount of construction that might be needed within the floodplain, in my view, are all valid requests for the variance, and I would think that they meet that standard. The third request, as it relates to the size of the accessory building, that one I struggle with a little bit, and I don't know the impetus behind why the accessory building size is proposed to be what it is. So I'm not sure if the applicant is on the line, Mike.
He is.
But if he can provide any input on that one, that would be helpful, I think, for the board if they can listen to what the applicant has to say, and maybe it'll help clear things up a little bit for them.
Andy, you want to do that now, or do you want to do that when we get to that point?
Yeah, well, if we want to kind of do standard findings on each one of these, let's do that now, and then you can decide if they meet all 3 of those, if all 3 of the variances meet that standard, or if it's just 2 out of the 3, or what your thoughts are.
Okay. Yeah, let's just go ahead and we'll keep going. When we get to that point about the size, we'll bring it up at that time.
The second standard is that the condition or situation of the specific piece of property for which the variance is sought is not so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practical the formulation of a general regulation for such conditions. So that's kind of, plannerese for saying, is this such a common request that we might as well just amend the ordinance instead of granting a variance? And if it is a common or potentially common request, then we should just amend the ordinance and then disapprove the variance request. In my view, this is a pretty unique situation, and we haven't had a variance like this for as long as we've been working there. Most, if not all, of the property owners that we've dealt with when it comes to accessory buildings have been able to comply with the ordinance, both in terms of the paved driveway requirement and the size requirement and the location requirement. So I do think that each of the 3 variances meet standard number 2, because this is a fairly unique situation. The location of the property in relation to the floodplain definitely makes it a fairly unique site within the city. The 3rd standard is that the variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right similar to those possessed by other properties within the same district. The possibility of increased financial return shall not of itself be deemed sufficient to warrant a variance. So what this is looking at is the applicant asking for something that's pretty typical for what other people are able to have in that district. In the SR district, I would say that accessory buildings are pretty common. The suburban residential district is kind of your lowest density residential district. And there are some neighboring properties in the township that have more accessory building, but within the vicinity, I think it's pretty common for people to have accessory buildings. So I would say that this standard is also met. He is not asking for anything particularly outrageous here. Most everyone that we deal with at the city level anyways, if we're able to work with them and get them approved for an accessory building. The 4th standard is that the variance will not be significantly detrimental to the adjacent property and the surrounding neighborhood. Again, this is a fairly large parcel, especially by city standards. It's about 3 acres, I think, 3.6 acres. So it's a little bigger than your typical city lot. So that, coupled with the amount of natural vegetation and woods on the property, I would say that the location of the accessory building would be fairly well screened from each of the neighboring properties on either side. And we did see the letters from those folks. It sounds like they're also supportive of the applicant's request. So I do think that standard 4 is met, that the variance would not be detrimental to adjacent property and the surrounding neighborhood. The 5th standard, the variance will not impair the intent and purpose of the ordinance. The intent and purpose of the ordinance is kind of a long and complicated question, but purposes include things like the provision for appropriate relationships between uses of land and the locations. And again, kind of getting back to the floodplain where he's got the proposed building situated, and things like that, I don't think that we would be significantly undermining the ordinance by granting these variances, especially the first 2. Again, with the size variance, looking for a bigger building than what's permitted. That one I'm a little less clear on, because while the size of the building in relation to the surrounding parcels and this parcel is probably fine, I don't want to get into the habit of the city needing to grant variances for larger accessory buildings when it really doesn't need to. So that's something that I think you should keep in mind as you ask for the size. But as far as the driveway and the front yard location goes, I think both of those easily meet standard number 5.
Okay.
Standard 6 is that the immediate practical difficulty causing the need for the variance request was not created by any action of the applicant. So this is one of those standards where if an applicant creates their own problem, then the city is not going to bail them out, is kind of how that standard works. And so again, the main reason for needing the request is the presence of the floodplain, and obviously the applicant did not create that. On top of that, the location of the house or the dwelling on the site that the applicant is going to be living in or does live in is set pretty far back off the road, so it would be nearly impossible to put an accessory building on a property in compliance with the ordinance. unless they put it practically in the river, which of course nobody wants, including Eagle. So I do think that standard 6 is met for all 3 of those probably, and I don't see an issue there. So those are the 6 standards. I guess to kind of summarize my comments, I'm pretty comfortable with the requests relating to the location in that front yard and the driveway. He is proposing to pave a portion of the driveway off the road, just not all of it. And so with part of that being paved, I think that'll help with any potential issues with tracking mud and dirt and stuff onto Main Street. Again, without having heard from the applicant, I'm not convinced yet on the variance requests as it relates to the size of the building. He's asking for 1,600 square feet, where the ordinance limits everyone to 1,200. And so depending on how the rest of this goes, you can kind of use your judgment on that one. You can choose to approve these or not approve them, depending on what your findings are for each one, and we can kind of go through them. And I have some thoughts at the very end of my report on pages 8 and 9 that kind of walk through logically how you should do this. I would say that if you're going to decide on one first, decide on the location, because if you deny that one, there's no point in moving on with the next 2. So Marty, I'll turn it back over to you and the board. If there are questions, I'll be happy to answer them, and we can kind of go from there.
Okay. Does the board have any questions as far as the standards go? We all pretty good on them standards? If so, I think I'd like to take a vote on that we're good with the standards before we move to 2 and 3, okay? Will that work?
So Marty, would this be the standards for which variance? The one for the location, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, would you like me to do roll call?
Yes, please.
Okay. Board Member DeVore,
We're just approving the location right now?
Yep.
Yep, yes.
Board Member Salzweedl,
Yes.
Board Member Yankovic, I don't hear Board Member Yankovic.
Hang on. You got muted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Board Member
You got
Yankovic.
muted again?
Board Member Yankovic, one more time.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Chair Chambers
Yes.
and Board Member Canfield.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to, I believe Andy will be the paved driveway.
Yep.
Or, okay, you wanna bring us up to speed on that, please?
Yep. So this is kind of the same. So we'll apply the same standards. So the background here is that typically when somebody constructs a home or an accessory building, the city requires the applicant to construct a paved driveway from the street all the way to the accessory building. On the site plan, there's kind of a sketch that we received from the applicant. It looks like there's a paved driveway that'll be running near the accessory building, just not quite all the way up to it, and it's a little hard to tell there. But again, you know, the idea here is that we're not looking to have the applicant bring in more fill, do more construction, create more impervious surface in the floodplain that is otherwise necessary. And the overall intent of that specific standard as far as the paving goes is to minimize dust. You know, if we're, you know, in town and everyone has just a gravel or dirt driveway leading to their garage, there could be dust issues and things like that. Because this is a larger parcel, heavily wooded, not particularly close to other houses, and a portion of this would be paved, I think he's done a pretty good job of kind of minimizing the potential dirt and dust and those kinds of issues that would be associated with it. So the standards are the same for those. So I don't know that I need to go through each of those again, Marty, but
No.
I think I'm fairly comfortable with that one as well. It meets the kind of uniqueness of, which is kind of the basis for granting a lot of variances. So
Yeah.
that kind of be the next
Andy,
one. Yeah.
millings would be something where he doesn't have to disturb anything. He can put millings down and it doesn't create any problems, right, to that new building?
Yep, and we've approved millings primarily just for temporary use before, but that is it. If you want to see something like that, you could certainly, as a condition for that particular one, you could require millings all the way up to the garage if you wanted to, give a little there. But that is something that we've approved in the past for kind of a temporary use. Obviously, it was much more intense, like a parking lot. So.
Yeah.
For a residential driveway, I think that would be fine.
Okay. So, board members, if I'd like to have your opinion on that, we can add millings at the end. That'll have to be done if we approve everything else. Any comments on that?
I'm looking at the lot and it says new paved drive, and then it goes out to the street where the building is located. Is that all gonna be paved out to the street or no? I'm a little confused by the handwriting that I'm looking at on the survey.
Well, let's ask Ryan. Mike, can you bring Ryan up, please?
Yeah, he should be on.
Ryan,
Ryan,
are
you
you
there?
there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Did you hear what Jim would like
I
to
did.
do? Okay. Could you answer that, please?
I did. If I could get away with running millings up to it, I'd prefer to go with the millings being cost effective. But I understand the keeping the dirt off from M21 there. I'd be more than willing to pave an apron right there and then maybe mill it back as far as the DEQ will allow it.
Well, you've got on your site plan here, new paved, and it goes way down into the, you're 150, 170 feet into your property. You're showing new paving drive. And then you've got an arrow there. Is that, you're just gonna pave from the street to the barn or just past it?
Correct. 50 to 60 feet is what I was proposing.
Okay,
So that makes a little bit more sense. And then doing a paved apron then up to the building?
Correct.
Okay, I like it a lot better. Thank you.
yep.
So do we have any more questions on that? As far as that driveway? We all good with that?
Yep.
Any comment? If not, I'll have Susie take a roll call.
Okay. Board Member Salzweedl,
Yes,
Board Member Yankovic,
Yes.
Chair Chambers,
Yes.
Board Member Canfield,
Yes.
Board Member DeVore.
Yes.
All right, Andy, let's deal with this size issue.
Yep. So this is one that didn't come through on the request, but as we reviewed it, we noted that he's requesting something that's larger than is permitted by the ordinance. This is something that you can vary, but as you likely surmised as I ran through the standard, I'm not sure that it meets those. There's not a good reason as far that I can see as far as that relates to the uniqueness of the property or the floodplain that would justify or require a larger building. So, if Ryan's listening, if there's any insight that you can provide there, that might kind of help me understand what you're looking for here.
Sure.
Ryan, go ahead.
Yep, I'm right here. I own 4 boats that are all in use throughout the summer, 2 of which are pontoons. One's a 24-footer and one's a 20-footer. I don't really have a place to store them other than my yard, and lawn ornaments in Lowell don't look real appealing. I have a 16.5-foot deep V bottom, and then I have a smaller boat. Like I say, all 4 of which I use. I also have a cargo trailer. I've got a snowmobile on the trailer. You know, and then I've got a work trailer as well, which, you know, that's enclosed, so that's contained by itself. But I've just got a lot of stuff: log splitter, lawnmower, rototiller, and on and on. You know, I've got a lot of property here, so I've got a lot of things to maintain my property. And also, I've got 3 boys, 2 of which live at home yet, and the youngest is interested in possibly having chickens or goats or I don't know what, but possibly I wanted to save a little room if we did have, you know, a hobby for him.
Okay. Board members, do you have any comment? Any?
What's the height going to be on that?
I would like 10-foot walls on it.
Okay, and then at the peak, it's what, 16, 18 feet?
You know, I would say roughly.
Yeah,
I don't have an exact answer for you on that.
that's all right. From what you listed, you almost need a 32 by 90. Or, sorry.
Trust me, if I could afford it, I'd really like that. But
Yeah, I was just curious about the height of that, looking at from M21, but it's all right.
I was looking at 10 to 12 inch wall. Or I'm sorry, 10 to 12 foot walls on it. I guess it just depended on what size door I could get to get my stuff in and out. I didn't want to put too small a door on it. That was one of my concerns.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I kind of, the extra 400 square feet, that's quite a bit larger than we typically ever do. I kind of have an issue with it, but if it is to store everything inside and to make the site look nice and neat and clean, maybe. But when Andy usually has a issue or raises a concern, I've dealt with Andy long enough to know that I should pay attention. So,
My next question is, that size says, does it allow him to do any other future shed structures on the property, or is that going to limit it to the one only?
Yeah, so he would be limited to just the one. In the zoning ordinance, it's the cumulative area of all your accessory buildings can't exceed the 1,200. So if you build this, then you wouldn't be permitted to build something else.
He could maintain shed though, Andy?
What's that?
He could maintain that current shed?
Yeah.
Okay.
would that mean then he could put lean-tos off the back of it or anything, or off the sides?
No, I
Andy?
mean, if you started enlarging the building even with lean-tos and stuff, we'd probably not allow that, because whenever you're making that building a little bit bigger, he'd be moving farther out of compliance. So
Okay.
if you were granted the variance for this, he'd be good to go with what's proposed, but that would likely preclude any future accessory buildings or enlargement of accessory buildings, unless, of course, he came in for another variance or if we amended the ordinance to allow it. The one thing that is a bit unique here, and the primary reason I think for why we have this limitation on size, is because obviously if you have a typical 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 square foot lot, we're not going to want like a quarter of it taken up with a giant building. This is a much larger parcel, so the impact on the neighbors is going to be a lot less, and I think the overall kind of visual impact on the city is going to be a lot less. But it's just one of those where I just don't know that it meets the standards based on the analysis I did earlier.
All right. Thank you, Andy. Board members?
I think it's a better visual than a bunch of equipment sitting out in the yard with grass growing all around it, or him having to haul everything out to maintain his lawn or the rest of his property. I'd almost rather have it in a structure where if it starts to fall apart, nobody sees it but him.
Is it all going to fit in there?
Ryan?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it's not in the water, it is. Yep.
Greg, do you have anything?
Nope, nothing.
Jim, are you good?
Yeah, I'm actually good with the size too. You know, if it was on a standard city lot, I wouldn't, but at the 3.6 acres, I'm okay with the fact that's on a much larger than normal lot size.
Same here.
Okay. With that, Susie, could you do a roll call, please?
Board Member Yankovic,
Yes.
Chair Chambers,
Yes.
Board Member Canfield.
Yeah.
Board Member DeVore,
Yes.
Board Member Salzweedl.
Yes.
All righty.
So, Marty, I think at this time, what just for the record, there should be a motion to approve, and you can either do them one at a time or do all three. But a motion to approve these requests made by somebody, supported by somebody, and then if
Yep.
you want to include the asphalt millings as a condition of approval for that driveway variance, I would include that in the motion as well.
And that's what I'd like to do. So we'll do the three first. First, I'd like a roll call on the location. Susie, if you would, please.
Okay.
Is
Chair
there a-
Chambers.
There should be like a motion and a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You grant the variance.
Okay. I'll look for a motion then that we grant the variance for the placement of the barn.
So moved.
Support.
I have a first and second. Sue, would you do roll call, please?
Chair Chambers,
Yes.
Board Member Canfield,
Yes.
Board Member DeVore,
Yes.
Board Member Salzweedl,
Yes.
Board Member Yankovic.
Yes.
Okay, with that, I'd like a motion for the paved driveway.
So
I'll make-
So
moved.
moved.
Support?
Okay, I have a first and a second. Susie, if you would, please.
Marty, are we going to include the condition about the asphalt millings? Is that something you want to include or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so
I'll make that motion, including the millings.
Thank you.
Support.
Susie, roll call.
Board Member Canfield,
Yes.
Board Member DeVore,
Yes.
Board Member Salzweedl,
Yes.
Board Member Yankovic,
Yes.
and Chair Chambers.
Yes. And the last one, the 1,600 foot for the building.
I'll make a motion that we approve the size as presented.
And I'll
Okay.
support.
So we have a first and a second. Susie, if you would, please.
Board Member DeVore,
Yes.
Board Member Salzweedl,
Yes.
Board Member Yankovic,
Yes.
Chair Chambers,
Yes.
Board Member Canfield.
All right. Well, with all that done, Ryan, congratulations. Build your barn.
I very much appreciate it, guys. Thank you for working with me on this.
Yep. And now we'll move on to board and commission reports. Anybody?
I don't have anything.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Council comment?
Good job, Marty.
Okay, thank you. Jim, I'd like a time, please.
Oh, well, time is 7:33. Adjourn.
Second. Support.
Okay, with that, roll call, Stu?
Board Member Salzweedl,
Yes.
Board Member Yankovic,
Yes.
Board Member Canfield,
Yes.
Chair Chambers,
Yes.
Board Member DeVore.
Yes.
Okay, and with that being said, I turn this over for the regular city council meeting
All
to
right.
Mayor.
Give me 2 minutes and go grab that packet. I'll be right back.
All right, we're gonna take a 2-minute recess, 7:35, 7:36 now. We'll come back with the regular city council.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good night.
See you, Andy.
More water.
All right, everybody ready?
Yes, sir.
Mike, can you change it back to the participant view on mine, or can I do that? Well, I guess that'll work for now.
Mike,
All right, I can't see them because I got the agenda view.
Yeah, he stepped away.
Wait,
Somebody can tell me when he's back and we'll start.
hold on. Can you see me?
Nope, I can see Brian and Buke and Dan.
I see Marty.
I see you down in the corner.
Yeah.
Mike, can you change the view back to the participants,
Yeah, I can do that.
please?
Do you want the
All right.
agenda up or do you want it down? I mean, I can do it any way you want.
It's up to everybody else. I have it right here.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
I have it on the screen.
Okay,
Yep. I'm good with it this way.
that's
All
fine.
right, 7:36 p.m. We're going to call the city council meeting to order. We'll skip the pledge of allegiance. Susie, can you call roll, please?
Yes, I have Councilmember Yankovic,
Present.
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
Mayor DeVore,
Here.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Here.
All right, before we approve the agenda, if you guys look at new business, what I'd like to do is move the budget hearing down to item D, and then move both those light and power items up so that we can talk about them before we get to the budget.
Okay, before we do that, Mike, we got
Yep.
last meeting's agenda, item 11. It showed you as a vote. You were absent, so we need to correct that.
Okay. All right, so if there's no objections to that, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the new business change and taking me out of the May 4th council meeting minutes.
I'll support, or,
I'll support.
Marty made a motion and
Yeah.
Jim supported.
I'll
Any
support it.
discussion on it? Sue?
Councilmember Chambers,
yes.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
All right, citizen discussion for items not on the agenda. If you want to say something, click the little raise your hand button or hit the mic, what is it, pound?
*9 if you're on the phone. If
Star
it's
9 if you're on the phone.
and if it's for if you want to speak on an issue, go to the participants, go to your name, and that's how you can raise your hand.
Anybody moving on yours?
I don't see anything.
Okay. Out of it. Old business, item 4, number A, classification and compensation study. Michael?
Yes, the City of Lowell partnered with the Michigan Municipal League to review and revise job descriptions for a number of positions held in the city. In addition, we performed a compensation study to determine whether our positions are in the line with our market. Obviously, this all happened before the COVID-19 situation impacted our revenue stream. I have Marcia Cornell and Mandy Reed from the MML. They are here. I just got to unmute them real fast, and they can go over the study with you. Both Mandy and Marcia should be unmuted. Actually, Marcia's not unmuted yet.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much for having us attend your council meeting tonight, especially given these unusual meeting scenarios that we're working under. So as Mike mentioned, I am Mandy Reed. I'm with the Michigan Municipal League, who was asked to assist the City of Lowell in an update of its classification and compensation system. Marcia is joined with me today. She's one of the squares here somewhere. So we are here today to present the findings of the report, walk through the report with you, and ultimately answer any questions that you might have. So I believe you all have a copy of the report, so I'm going to reference it throughout my presentation today. If you don't have it in front of you, I'll try my best to make it as easy to understand without a visual, but let me know if I'm going too fast for anyone. So if we can actually just take a quick peek at page 1 of the final report. The header says executive summary at the top. And again, this is just a refresher. The City of Lowell asked for some assistance from the Michigan Municipal League in updating its classification compensation system. And it included the 12 positions that are listed there in the middle of page 1. All 12 positions underwent a thorough review of job analysis. They were included in the market study. They had updated job descriptions prepared, and they went through what's called point factor job evaluation. And so to give you a little bit of a definition of what each of those things mean, job analysis is the process of learning the intricate details of each position in order to make accurate comparisons to the information we find in the market. That job analysis also supports the process of developing new job descriptions. And quite frankly, the job analysis process is the most critical component of the entire study. That's the process of gathering all of the information from which the entire project will be based on. Point factor job evaluation is a process that rates or evaluates each position against very specific job-related criteria. And we do this to aid in the placement of each position within the recommended pay structure. And this is actually how internal pay equity is achieved among positions that may look very, very different on the outside. When we compare them to the same set of factors, we find that those positions with similar point totals should probably be paid within the same pay range. And then the third component of the study is the customized market survey of pay and benefits. And so we sent a customized salary and benefits survey to 15 different comparable communities. Those comparable communities are on page 2 and table 1. And of those 15 communities surveyed, we were able to collect data from 12 of them, either directly or through the use of supplemental resources that we had available. And it's important for us to share with you that when we undertake a project like this, we are fully aware that we are never going to find an exact match to the City of Lowell out there. There's no community out there that's exactly like Lowell. And in the same note, there are no positions that are going to identically match the positions in Lowell. Every community is unique, and all employees are asked to wear varying shades of hats. But the purpose of this study and the focus of our analysis is to find reasonably comparable communities that have similar employees or similar positions that have similar knowledge, skills, and abilities. Similar seems to be the key word there. And then also, because each community is unique, there are instances that you may find throughout this report where we weren't able to collect a sufficient amount of data to make comparisons to. And in situations like this where there's very little or sometimes even no data available from the market, that's when we really have to heavily focus on that point factor job evaluation process in order to identify which position belongs into which pay grade within the pay structure. So with all of those pieces in place, we can talk about our key findings, which start at the bottom of page 3.
Could I ask a question? Still on page-
Absolutely.
I'm just questioning, why is there such a spread in revenue? We're kind of at the top of both communities. Why does that vary so much?
Yeah, those are, when we do the list of comparables, we're primarily looking at initially at location, geographic location, as well as population and the type of services provided. The taxable value, revenues, and expenses are all going to be based, obviously, on their operational, well, the revenues and expenses on their operational demands. So those are sort of subcategories of analysis just as a point of reference.
Right, but our taxable value is pretty close to the average, and our revenue and our expenses are double the average.
Yeah.
Greg, I think they might be incorporating some of Light and Power's. I think they're incorporating Light and Power's revenues to this as well.
Okay,
Because they probably took it off the X65 or the F65 report.
Yep.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. So close to the bottom of page 3 with respect to the key findings. In terms of classification, so the job analysis process, again, allowed us to gather in-depth information on each position. But also through that process, we found 2 positions where consideration might be given to update some job titles to better reflect the work that's being performed. So for example, right now there's a position with the title of receptionist who, based on the work being performed, it might be better suited to rename that position administrative assistant. And similarly, there's a position currently titled as maintenance worker where consideration might be given to renaming that role a utility worker. Again, and this is based on the actual work being performed as well as information we collected through the market study. Okay. And then, as previously mentioned, the job analysis process also allowed us to create updated job descriptions for each position, and those were shared with the city earlier once they were completed. On to compensation. If we can actually scroll now to page 9 of the final report. And at the top of page 9, it says Table 3, Market Data Summary. Once we're there, we'll see a chart that is illustrating a summary of the market data that we collected in that customized survey. And so the far right of the column, the far right column lists each of the 12 positions that were included in the study. The next set of columns shows the current pay levels in Lowell. The third set of columns is the market average that we found through the individual position study. And then the columns on the far right are the compar ratio. And this is simply a calculation of the city's pay rate divided by the market average. And when we look at this pay summary altogether, taken in whole, what we find is that Lowell's pay levels are about 3% above the market minimum when looking at the range minimum, but then fall to 4% below the market average with respect to the midpoint, and then 5% below the average with respect to the maximum or the earning capacity. And then when you're looking at each individual position, you will see that there are variations on an individual level compared to market. But it's important to note that being above or below the market does not automatically imply that someone is overpaid or underpaid. Instead, it's just an illustration to show how Lowell's pay data is comparable to the market. And from there, we can touch on benefits for a moment. Benefits are a critical component to a compensation system. And because of that, we included a benefit survey in our customized market study. So when we again look at the benefits findings in total, if we take it in total, we'll find that Lowell's benefits are within a similar range of the market for several benefits, but are actually a bit more generous with respect to the offering of a defined benefit pension plan and the retiree health care coverage. Now, on the flip side of that, the city is less generous compared to market in terms of vacation accruals for its non-union staff. A qualitative summary of the benefits can be found starting on page 9, and the individual responses to the benefit survey can be found in Appendix B. Are there any questions then on the market summary or market data of pay and benefits? From here, if we can scroll along to page 14. The top of page 14 says Table 4, Suggested Pay Structure. So with job analysis complete and the job evaluation complete, and having analyzed all of the data we collected from the market, we were then able to prepare this suggested pay structure that's reflected in Table 4. And here you'll see each position grouped into pay grades. And again, that was determined by the point factor job evaluation process. And then in the middle, you'll see Lowell's current pay levels. And then on the far right is the recommended pay ranges, which was based on and supported by the market data we collected. The pay ranges, I want to point out, represent 30%, what am I trying to say? The range is about 30% wide, meaning that there's a 30% spread from the range minimum to the range maximum. And this is very typical that we see in the public sector, and was also illustrated in terms of what the market averages showed as well for the range width. You'll take note that one of the employees in the suggested pay structure has a current salary that's highlighted in green. This reflects what we call a green circled position, meaning that their current pay level is below the recommended range minimum. In instances of green circled situations, we always recommend to move as quickly as possible that employee up to at least the range minimum, assuming, of course, that there are no ongoing or documented performance issues in place.
Where is the green circle? I don't have it.
Yeah, it's not there.
It's the
Maintenance.
maintenance.
Oh, did the
Maintenance
color,
worker.
maybe the color didn't come through?
Okay. Yeah, the
It's-
maintenance worker position and the parks and street
Okay.
supervisor were or in the receptionist were the kind of the outliers.
Okay.
Yeah, but the only green circled was the maintenance worker.
Right. And that's also a first-year employee as well, so.
Yep. And it's not off by very much at all.
Right.
So that's a green circled situation. The flip side of that would be called a red circle situation, where an employee would be earning more than the range maximum. There are no red circled situations in the report here, which is a really great position to be in. But I do want to make note that if the city ever finds itself in a red circled situation, which isn't uncommon for employees who've been there a really long time, or for those positions that are just really hard to recruit or retain, there are options available and spelled out in the report on how you might address those situations. But it is never our recommendation. We caution against reducing an employee's pay or penalizing an employee in any way. There are other alternatives available that can be done in a much more progressive and constructive manner. So page 16, I believe it is. Yep. On page 16, you'll see Table 5 and Table 6. Table 5 is a traditional step system. That shows how you can move an employee from the range minimum all the way through the maximum in 9 different steps. That's a very traditional process to administering a pay system. Table 6, however, shows a combined step system that combines traditional approach with a more progressive pay for performance approach. Either option are available. It's up to the council or the city's compensation philosophy to determine how to move forward. And these are just 2 examples of how you might do that. And then as far as system administration, a classification compensation system, once it's designed and implemented, it isn't a self-sustaining tool. It does need regular maintenance and updates in order to continue serving its purpose. So for example, in this respect, pay adjustments are really a 2-step process. The first step is a general adjustment to the pay system itself, meaning you should update those pay ranges on a regular basis, even annually. And that can be done based on the cost of living, some type of inflationary rate, or whatever other economic indicator the city chooses. The second step is the adjustment to individual pay. And this, again, would be based on the compensation philosophy that the city has in place. And then, of course, even with regular maintenance, it is suggested that a full study like we've done here be conducted every 5 to 7 years, just to make sure that the system stays in line with the compensation philosophy and compensation policy. And so with that, it is my goal and Marcia's goal that the data and analysis that we've provided here arms the city with the information it needs to make these important policy considerations. And before I turn it over, I just want to say really quickly that Marcia and I would both really like to thank Mike and all of his staff in helping us out with this project. They were very helpful, thoughtful, and committed to providing us the information we needed, which is so important in order for us to be able to produce this report. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions for Mandy or Marcia on this report?
Back on page 16, we had the traditional step system and the step system. Is our goal to get everything to the maximum pay as possible? That's kind of what I like by these charts.
Yeah, so that's something I have to work on. It's kind of well, it's not an uncommon situation, but we have with our union employees, they have a set step system in their contract. Our non-union employees don't necessarily have that. And I probably need to reevaluate that part of it, because I think for the number of years some of those people are in, I probably need to look at the step system to figure out if they need to be reclassified. Unfortunately, though, this is probably the worst time with the budget to try and analyze that, but it's something that I do have to look at.
And it's recommended that we do this every 5 to 7 years. What is the cost of a study like this? I'm sure we approved it, but I don't recall.
I believe it was about it was the number of positions we looked at, and I believe for us it was about $12,000. Okay. But we also did the job descriptions, and so that was part of the cost. The job descriptions haven't been updated since 2001.
Thank you.
So,
All right. Any other questions?
Nope.
All right. Thank you guys for that.
Thank you.
Move to item B, gift from the Stahl estate, Mike.
yes, we tabled this item at our last meeting, and I know there's discussion about what you would want to do with the proceeds. And obviously, I presented something that obviously isn't the most exciting thing to consider, and I get that. But it was something that I knew was an issue that was coming going forward. That being said, the council did table the issue. From what I gather, maybe something more community-based with the proceeds. And you know, you don't necessarily need to make a decision, but you did ask me to bring this back to you. Couple things to keep in mind that if you're thinking along it on a community-wide angle, I know the showboat was brought up as part of this, which is a possibility. You could do that. That's definitely within your purview. Two expenditures that are going to be coming in the next couple of years that are community-based, but are going to be an impact to the general fund, are the fire truck. We are going to have to purchase our share of the county truck in 2 years. If the mayor can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe our share is probably about $125,000. And also, we did already agree to set aside $25,000 for the Lara Trail when that's finalized. That could be another option as well to think about. So I understand, like I said, the retirement health care, I understand it's not the most exciting thing. I get that. But it is an issue that isn't going away. So that's kind of where I was when I brought this to you, because I'm looking at it from our budget as to what I know is coming. So that is something that is the reason why I did it the way I did it. But you're more than welcome to do any way you wish.
All right. Anybody have any ideas on that, or do you want to? I know that the bench and the memorial are coming out of that money, right?
What, the park, Mike, did you say?
The memorial bench that we were doing.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know what you guys talked about last meeting, but I know that was approved, right? We're doing that either way, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Cliff.
I see a nice tie-in with a commemorative bench and the funding that we've committed to on the trail. I'm sure you're following me. Put a bench honoring them and for our portion of the trail expense.
I like that idea because it does something a little more flashy and glamorous, and then it frees up money that would have come out of the general fund. So it just puts it in. We could take that 25 and the 4 for the bench and just kind of put the rest on hold as what evolves going forward.
Yeah, I was also thinking, you know, we talk about a new building out at the cemetery coming out of the general funds. And I mean, there's probably 8 other things that we could possibly spend the money on. So there's a lot of good opportunities out there. I agree with the bench at this point. And then I don't know what else to say because there are so many things we could spend it on.
Okay. So the bench is a go, and then we'll come back when we find out how much other money's left and decide what to do with it. Is everybody good with that?
Sure.
yep.
Okay. No action on that one, so we'll move to item C, the vacation of High Street Resolution 1120. Mike?
Yes. As part of the settlement with Unity School Investors LLC, the city agreed to the partial vacation of the north 15 feet of High Street from Monroe Street to the west edge of the existing Unity School building on the 219 High Street parcel with the ownership transferred to Unity. Since this time, Unity has filed action regarding the vacated parcel and is making the request for this action. In your packet is a resolution 1120 for the city to approve, stating we approve the partial vacation of High Street in conjunction with our settlement agreement. I'm recommending the Lowell City Council approve resolution 1120 to approve partial vacation of the High Street plat.
Okay, and for the record, this is all from the settlement from a few months ago. This is just a resolution to make it official. We're not
Correct.
changing
No, what they're doing is this, they have to do it by a circuit court action. And basically what we're basically supporting is that we're not going to contest them on it.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure because people are going to read Unity has filed action and
Right.
get the wrong idea.
Correct.
This is just the necessary steps to continue with holding up our end of the agreement.
That is correct.
Okay. Anybody want to make that motion for resolution 1120?
I will. I'll make the motion that we approve Revolution 1120.
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion on it?
Where are we at with the DNR swap? Has there been any?
Sure. Be happy to explain that. I have had a lot of difficulty trying to communicate with DNR during this pandemic. However, we met back in the beginning of March about a land swap, and the original land swap of them giving us the 500 feet for the 7 foot by 263 foot, the state wasn't in favor of that. They wanted something more in addition to that. And we tried to come up with a couple of different ideas to consider that. So one of the things that I've gotten the blessing of DNR to move forward on, and we are starting to move forward on, is actually they will accept the 500 feet as part of the land swap, but also they will also agree to include parts of Riverside of the Riverwalk Park that were not encumbered in the DNR grant to be added as part of the DNR encumbrance, meaning the park it's already park property to begin with, and basically by doing that and having the 500 feet, and then I believe we got to clear up some easements on the property. The DNR, my last conversation with them last week, they were pretty reasonable with that request.
Mike, are you talking about the area down there at the north end of that park where it all?
Actually, to the south of the park. You have the park, and to the south, so like more between where the showboat and where the just south of the boat launch there.
Okay.
We just encumbered part of the park that was already there, basically.
Okay.
I wish I could probably in your Friday memo, I can give you a drawing of what we're looking at, and then if we want to come back to it, we can.
Mike, is that where the power transformer's at?
What's that?
Is that where the power transformer's at?
No, the power transformers are on 238 high. One of the
Okay.
things we didn't want to do is we didn't want to encumber 238 high because we didn't want to restrict you on that property if something ever came up.
Okay.
So it's already park now. It would just be the same park, only it would have the encumbrance of the DNR or whatever
Correct.
they're calling. Okay.
Correct. It's already the park now, and I don't anticipate there ever being a change to it.
But it means we could not change it. It would be
Correct.
Okay.
Which I don't believe we ever were intending to do.
Right.
All right. And any other questions from Mike on that? Sounds like we'll get an update on the rest of that on Friday.
I do, Mike.
Yep.
Can we get that? Can you do us a little drawing on that so we know?
Yeah, I
exactly?
have one. I have one for you. I can send that to you.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe we'll put that up in the June meeting so everyone can see.
We can do that. Yep, we can do
What
that.
we're
It's something
talking
I'm
about.
still working on. So
People don't just think we're drawing all these
Giving away,
pictures.
so
Yeah,
they
fair
don't
enough.
think we're giving away park.
Right.
correct.
All right. Well, we have a motion and a second then. If there's no other discussion, we'll go to Susie.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic,
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers.
Yes.
Item D, water billing late fees. Mike.
Yeah, since the COVID-19 pandemic, sorry, my cat got in the way. Since the COVID-19 pandemic began in March, the city has not issued late fees for not meeting water billing deadlines. When I presented this item on how you wanted to handle this further, the council agreed to continue to waive fees in April, but asked that I bring the issue back in May. I've been informed we have a number of people utilizing a payment plan to address their bills. That said, if shutoffs were allowed currently, the city would have only shut off 14 accounts for delinquency after the April billing was due. This is not a very high number for the city, And we have a number of people who are a month behind. However, this is a common thing even when the economy was better. As city manager, I don't see an issue at this time continuing to waive late fees for a few more months as this still plays out. It appears that we are getting pretty decent compliance from our customers. I know of a number of cities who have waived late fees until the end of the year. I'm not sure I want to consider doing this now. If you were to consider waiving fees, you may want to consider until the end of August and then reconsider in September. There's also the option of just reinstituting the fees. I can see arguments for both sides of the debate on the issue, and you don't necessarily want to create a system to reward people to not follow their obligations. However, that said, we can handle this any way you want. It's not an issue. So just wanted to get more guidance from the council on how you want to handle this.
I don't know about August, but I would like to see it probably remain May and June.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I think we're going to start hopefully ramping back up a little bit. And if we're getting good compliance now, it means people are not taking advantage of us, which is what the best thing we could have hoped for. I think May is going to be your toughest month because all the people who worked in March got paychecks in April. They're not going to get them in May.
Right.
So, Jim?
So we're saying basically we have not seen an increase in delinquencies. It's always runs about 14 people or so every month anyways.
Somewhere around there. Yeah, usually what
Yeah.
happens is they have a bigger list when they first start getting to the shut-off point, and then they usually call people and can be able to resolve it with very few shut-offs. Yeah, this number isn't very alarming to my staff.
Mm-hmm.
Cliff?
I think it's a nice gesture. I think we should keep it in place.
Greg?
I agree. I think the 2 months is adequate. I wouldn't put it out farther than that yet, but 2 months is good.
All right. Marty?
Yeah, I like June. We can always come back at our last meeting of the month in June and relook at it and see if we need to extend it out or, see how things are going at that point. So I'm good with that.
Mike, you'd be comfortable with that, May and June, and then the second
That's
June
fine.
meeting, we'll see where we're at with it, put it right back on the agenda?
No problem.
Good. All right, item E, HVAC maintenance. Mike again.
Yep. Attached are our proposed preventative maintenance agreements between the city and Progressive Heating, Cooling, and Refrigeration based out of Lowell to provide routine inspection, cleaning, and heating and cooling equipment located at City Hall, the DPW building, the Historical Museum, and Engelhart Library. The annual cost for the service is for City Hall $1,668, DPW building $448, library $1,592, museum $720. This is an annual agreement, and the cost does not include any repairs to the system. Progressive has been providing routine repair services to the city since 2016. I should note these prices have been the same amount for the past 4 years. Progressive did mention to me the possibility of a slight increase next time the agreement is renewed. We've already budgeted funds for this, and I'm recommending that the Lowell City Council approve the preventative maintenance agreements with Progressive Heating, Cooling, and Refrigeration as presented.
Greg, anything?
Those are good numbers. They're a good company. They're local. I'd make a motion that we approve the preventive maintenance agreement with Progressive Heating and Cooling as presented.
And I'll support.
All right. Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Sue?
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic,
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield.
All right. Finally, we're down to new business. Item A is the water, what does it say? Water service rules and regulations. Daniel.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and everyone else involved today. Recently with the billing of customers and shutoffs and such, Mike and I started looking at the service rules, water service rules and regulations, and he asked me to put together a review and an update of that. As you're aware, the operations of the city's water and sewer utilities has their own chapter in our code of ordinances. The information found here helps us to properly interpret and operate these two utility departments. As time moves forward, issues come up, however, that need direction that's not found in the ordinance. Chapter 25, Water and Sewage Disposal Service, spells out the city's rules for connecting to the available utilities. This includes rules to be followed by the city and the customer, as well as how the utility charges are billed out. While the sewer portion goes into great details, the water portion leaves many of the details to be determined as necessary by the creation of rules and regulations. That would be section 25-18. The current water service rules and regulations were developed several years ago, and I included them with my memo. While they're very useful, there are many areas that administration has found to be difficult to explain and enforce. There are other areas not even discussed. Our city administration works hard to interpret the direction that is needed and to help the customer as much as we can. However, many times this isn't easy, and sometimes not everyone interprets things the same way. I may look at it one direction, Lori or Amy or Susie or Ralph or somebody might look at it a little differently, or even what was done in the past. Our goal is to come up with some documents to help all of us be on the same page, if you will. Recently, two items have come up that caused more of a review of the ordinance. First, we received a request to stop billing at a business as they have vacated currently and are closed due to the governor's stay-at-home orders. As you're aware, our water sewer utility bills include a commodity charge on the amount of water that's used, plus a readiness to serve charge based on the size of the meter. Not using any water would bring the commodity charge to zero. However, the readiness to serve charge is based on connecting to the system and is a straight charge that is generally intended to cover the capital costs of the system. Those capital costs includes capital works that are scheduled yearly, plus yearly payment on our current bonds. The bond payments are figured based on the number of customers. Not every customer is paying their share, then the income to pay capital costs could become deficient. Keep in mind, in future years, the city is looking at making some major system improvements, and those improvements have been figured into the future rate increases, again, based on the number of customers. Second item of concern was the connection to our water system in areas without a water main in front of the property.
Can we deal with these one at a time, or
Sure.
no?
Sure, if you have a question.
Well, so they don't want to pay anything because they shut down.
That's my understanding, correct.
And there's nothing that makes it clear in our rules that even if you're
So the way our ordinance is written, it does basically state that we shall charge a readiness to serve unless basically they disconnect from the system. However, the practice has been, before I came here, like in the winter, we do, like if people are going to Florida, they don't want to pay their water bill, we shut them off for the 3 months, so they're not paying the ready to serve and the commodity. And this has been kind of a practice that's been done in the past, and it's creating headaches for us on how to handle this, because if you look at the ordinance doesn't allow it, but it's the way we've always done it.
I recognize that we probably need to change this, but I think right now in the middle of this pandemic with people struggling to put food on their table, that these changes could wait 3 to 6 months.
And that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. We're just bringing it to you now.
It's probably going to take 3 to 6 months to put it all together in a document, get it reviewed by everybody on staff so that it's all makes sense and everybody understands it, and then get it back to council for your review and discussion and final approvals. 3 to 6 months is what I was figuring it was going to take anyway. So that's not a problem.
Mike, do we then charge for a re-hookup fee after they get back from Florida for 3 months?
Yes, I believe it's a $35 fee.
Okay.
That's a
And Marty and Jim, you guys remember February when we were in Frankenmuth and they were talking about the importance of that ready to serve charge.
Correct,
Yep.
yeah.
And it just means that if you go in your house and you turn on a tap, water comes out. That's what you're paying for. And that water is really still there. You know what I mean? Even for places that aren't doing business right now because of the state or whatever. So I'm not, but if they went in those businesses to clean or to do whatever, and they turn that tap on, water would come out. So if that's what the ready to serve charge covers, then I think billing it is appropriate.
Yeah, when we sat in that and we listened to them, they were all adamant that that is by far the one thing you should always be doing. There was places that weren't, we found there's cities that weren't even doing it correctly. Now they're on the right way to do it. I know how we've always done it. I get it. But if somebody does walk into these buildings, turns the tap on and starts drawing water for whatever reason, I mean, that's saying, well, you get free water until X. And I'm not for that because we do have projects coming up. We have costs invested and it's always there. So that's my take.
This also definitely helps us for the capital cost improvement projects later on too.
Yeah.
Right.
Wasn't there a lawsuit, Mike? A huge lawsuit, Lansing versus somebody?
You're talking
that was
about
ready
Bolt.
to serve?
Yeah, you're talking about Bolt, the Bolt case. The Bolt case is,
Yep.
so the Bolt case is more, it was more legal charges to the system that were basically deemed as an unfair tax. That's basically the essence of the Bolt case.
Okay.
Well, I think if it's going to take 3 to 6 months for you to develop more clear language, you should proceed. And that way we're not stepping on anybody's toes while the poop's in the propeller, and then we can clear it up.
So that would make it, what, December would be probably the earliest, Dan, you could have it put together?
November of,
I was thinking probably June or July, and then the
Okay.
discussion end of it. And I think before we're done too, I'm going to want to have our city attorneys at least get a view of it so they make sure we're not proposing something that's not doable.
Okay.
so everybody's comfortable with Dan just continuing with his project, and then we'll tear it all apart when he's done and make him do it all over again?
Yeah.
Any other questions for Dan? All right, thank you, Dan.
Sure.
Now we go to Steve. Fiscal year 2021 operating and capital budget for low light and power.
Let me unmute him 1 minute. Hang on.
I don't even see him. I just see a blank screen.
Sort of dark.
He's at the bottom. Hang on.
He must not have light and power.
I got him. Steve, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Similar to last year, and I think the past several years, Mike asked me to give some highlights of the low light and power fiscal year 2021 operating and capital budgets. Our budgets obviously are incorporated in the city's entire budget as we're an enterprise fund of the city. So ultimately, it makes sense for me to highlight what the Low Light and Power Board is recommending the council adopt. In March, the Low Light and Power Board did approve a budget according to city charter standards. And typically, from March to May, there's really just a fine tuning of that budget with some minor tweaks. With the COVID pandemic, like every other business really in the country, it's had a great impact to low light and power, and we had major changes to that March budget. Included in your packet is the final budget that the Lowell Light and Power Board is recommending the council adopt. And I just want to highlight some of the major changes that were made from the March budget. In March, we had budgeted total revenue of right around $9 million. The budget in your packet has total revenue of just under 8.2 million. That's just over an $800,000 decrease. This decrease is due to the fact that our kilowatt hour sales are down 11 to 13% over the last 8 weeks, and our demand, which is another component of our rate structure for your large industrial and commercial customers, is down 10+%. So the kilowatt hour charges that I'm assuming in the next fiscal year, we have around a 7 million kilowatt hour sale reduction and a 1,200 kilowatt demand reduction, which is driving down sales. In the budget before you, we had in March planned on hiring a 2-man tree trimming crew. This would have been a new crew that we've never had before. Unfortunately, just due to the circumstances, I had to take them out of the budget. We made a number of other cuts to other departments. Obviously, the primary goal for Lowell Light and Power is to provide safe, reliable, and affordable electric service to our ratepayers, and maintaining current staff to continue to do preventative maintenance, normal capital projects, et cetera, is extremely important. So we're still planning to fund all current employees and hire an additional lineman to replace a lineman that we lost earlier this year. The way I budget, we take a look back at the previous 5 years worth of expenses, and we go through each one of the line items you see in your budget to look at every single expense, every single dollar, whether it be an inventory charge out, a work order charge out, an outside consultant, payroll labor, et cetera. We look at each individual expense and ask ourselves, do we need this going forward? Can we get this rebid? Can we take this in-house? Does it make more sense to go out for bid for this item? And we make a decision for all of these expenses in each line item and add payroll to all those expenses to get the number that you see in your packet for each expenditure. So we have a pretty fine-tuned process now for all the expenses you see in your packet. Revenue is really determined based on forecasted sales, and that's just trying to predict what people are going to use. But the COVID pandemic definitely changed our Lowell Light and Power's future, and it has impacted the pilot contribution that we plan to pay the city. In March, we had budgeted just under $386,000. In the budget that you see this evening, it's just over $351,000. So it's a $34,000 reduction. Capital budget was reduced in terms of next year's expenses by over $600,000. And again, that was primarily due to the pandemic. So I don't know if the council has any questions in regards to the process, how this pandemic has impacted Lowell Light and Power or the budget itself, but I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Steve on his budget? No? Nobody wants to come at you about numbers, Steve. We've learned our lesson. All right, no action on that one then. Thank you, Steve. Now we're going to go to Lowell Light and Power Resolution 13-20, intent to issue bonds. Steve again.
All right. Second item this evening, the Light and Power Board at our meeting last week is recommending that the council adopt the resolution included in your packet, which would allow for a notice to be published with the ledger as soon as this week. And that notice would advertise Lowell Light and Power's intent to sell revenue bonds up to $995,000. The resolution in your packet, if passed this evening, does not obligate Lowell Light and Power to issue debt. It just starts a 45-day clock where citizens of Lowell can petition to have the decision of whether Lowell Light and Power moves forward with issuing those bonds or not decided by a vote of the people rather than the vote of the Lowell Light and Power Board or Council. So it's really just a administrative compliance requirement that Lowell Light and Power and the Council must go through to even give us the option or ability to issue debt. But the reason we're considering going forward with issuing debt, we have a number of deferred facility-related projects that need to be done at the Lowell Light and Power Energy Center, where our combustion turbines are located and all of our trucks and equipment, and that's where Lighthouse is leasing space from us for treatment operation. We need to repair roofs at that facility. The parking lot continually floods and the asphalt is in very poor shape. We have restrooms, a break room, control room, offices there that we haven't spent, probably more than a dime on in almost 20 years. And then there's other various upgrades that Casey and Ryan would like to continue to do to the facility in regards to safety equipment, lighting, control equipment, SCADA upgrades, security in terms of cameras and a key card system, etc. So these projects ultimately have to get done. There's really no way around it. And instead of, knocking these projects out through our capital budget, which would take 3-4 years, I brought the concept of issuing debt to the Lowell Light and Power Board to accomplish all these projects at once. And the reason I brought this concept to the table, there are 4 reasons. First, debt is extremely cheap right now due to the current pandemic. Tax-exempt bonds are in the 2% or less neighborhood. I believe it was, it might have been the TVA actually had the lowest bond issuance in the history of the United States recently at 0.50%. So really debt is very cheap right now. Second, moving forward with projects could potentially be a benefit to the local economy. A lot of these projects will need various contractors, from electricians to plumbers to roofers to concrete, civil engineering, etc. So there would be a great potential for a wide range of different businesses and consultants and contractors to do work locally right here in our town. Third, from a logistics and convenience standpoint, we just thought for our employees, for Lighthouse's sake, it would make more sense to move forward with all these projects at once, knock them out in 6, 9, 12 months, rather than telling our employees, telling Lighthouse, hey, for the next 3-4 years, we're going to continually have contractors and vendors and consultants on site, doing these series of projects. And then fourth, typically there's inflation, things cost more later. It's only going to get more costly if we wait to do these types of projects. So before, you potentially consider and approve the resolution, I just wanted to give an overview of the logic of why we're exploring the potential of issuing revenue bonds, and the projects that would be done if we did go ahead and issue those bonds. And if we do decide to move forward, there would have to be another resolution or action taken by council at a later time with the exact dollar amount, payment schedule, interest rate, etc. And the last item I'd like to know is, if we do move forward in the future, it's Lowell Light and Power's ratepayers that would be obligated to pay the debt service on these bonds, and the city council would not be on the hook for any of these payments. So it's the Light and Power Board's recommendation to pass the resolution and include in your packet and I'll take questions at this time.
I also think it's important, this does not affect the city's debt margin, right? This is,
That is correct. This is not a general obligation bond. This is strictly a revenue bond. So it doesn't impact our 10% of our taxable value.
okay. Any other questions for Steve?
Steve, would this appear on the November ballot, or we'd have a special ballot for the voters to choose?
Actually, unless there was a petition to have this on the ballot, and that petition would have to take place within the next 45 days, if the council approved the resolution tonight,
Right.
it could come to a light and power board and council vote. So the petition would just be to have it on the ballot. I talked with our legal counsel. Typically, that's not the norm. This is in the grand scheme of things, $995,000 is on the smaller side in terms of debt for Lowell Light and Power. We've had capital budgets 1.3 to 1.6 million, and this is just up to 995. It could come in at an amount 50% of that, or it could come in all the way up to 995. But there's no guarantee it will be a vote, Jim, if that makes sense.
Right. Yep, it does.
Okay. Anything else for Steve? How about a motion to approve resolution 1320 authorizing Light and Power to issue their notice of bond intent?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any other discussion on it? Sue?
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic,
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers, Councilmember Chambers,
Hang on, he got muted.
He's waving yes.
Thank you, Mike.
You muted again.
Councilmember
me?
Chambers,
Yes.
and Mayor DeVore.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Steve.
I don't think I voted it.
Oh,
I mean, I know I don't count, but
Councilmember Canfield, I apologize.
it's all good, just keeping us on track.
Thank you. And I was muted 2 topics ago. If you guys can still hear me, just want to throw one quick comment. I know the readiness to serve, that fixed connection fee charge. I've taken a couple different rate consulting classes and have heard different vendors talk. Lowell Light and Power does charge that readiness to serve charge and fee, and I'm also aware that most rate consultants, if not all, do promote implementing that type of charge, because if you don't have something like that, the rest of the customer base is essentially subsidizing that customer.
yep.
Just wanted to make that comment that is consistent with what I've taught and what I've learned over the last 10 years. So
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Now we're going to move to item D, which used to be item B. Going to open a public hearing for the fiscal year 2021 budget. Do we have any? Go ahead, Mike.
Did you want me to read the memo first and then open the public hearing?
Sure.
Okay. On Monday, April 20th, I presented the City Council with the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget for initial review. On Saturday, April 25th, we held our City Council budget work session where we reviewed the budget. Since this time, we have provided clarification to budget items in question and have had discussion about additional budget reductions since then. I'm projecting approximately $160,000 in revenue loss from all municipal funds with the exception of the water and wastewater funds. I've attached my budget memo that I submitted previously to City Council, and we are to hold our public hearing this evening. If you would like more public hearing opportunities, that is your option. It is also your option if you want to approve the proposed budget at this meeting. Couple things of note. I want to bring up this issue with the sales tax. In our budget, we had projected about we projected about a $60,000 loss in sales tax and then an additional $43,000 in the general fund to our light and power pilot. Last Friday, the state of Michigan had their revenue estimating conference, and they did provide us with new revenue projections for our sales tax, which is our revenue sharing. At this time, for the rest of this fiscal year, we are looking at $25,000 less than what was originally projected when we approved our budget last year. And for next year, we are looking at about $40,000 less than what we projected for our budget earlier this year. So we're looking at about a $60,000 reduction over this fiscal budget and next fiscal budget. The remaining question remains, as part of our revenue sharing, it's broke down in two different ways. The constitutional revenue sharing it's basically formula based, and it's done for the state level. There's a statutory component of revenue sharing that doesn't fall under the same model as the sales tax model, and that's basically approved by the legislature and signed by the governor annually. Being that there's a $3 billion hole in the state government, in the state budget for this upcoming year, and then a $3 billion hole for next fiscal year, there's a possibility that could get cut. We get about $60,000, I want to say about $60,000 a year of our revenue sharing is in statutory revenue sharing. So we have a potential of that $60,000 getting cut in addition to the sales tax component. So just wanted to share that with you, so you're aware of it.
Anticipated a reduction in this already and factored that into this budget, correct?
Well, I projected the whole budget for next year. That being said, I haven't gotten, because I literally found this out today. So in regards to this fiscal year, we were already projecting that we were going to have a surplus. It was about, I want to say we had a projected surplus of about $140,000 when we presented the budget to you in April. That said, that's probably going to get shaved back a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Now we will open up the public hearing. If you want to raise your hand or call in, now it's your chance to talk about the budget. Anybody, Mike?
No.
All right. Council, any other comments? I agree. All right, then we will close the public hearing. Does anybody feel like we need to have more public hearings about next year's fiscal budget?
No, I don't. I think somebody
Mr.
would have been right if they had a comment, so I'm good with it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, one other thing. In our budget, we did not project a rate increase from when I submitted the budget to you back in April. We did not submit a rate increase for the water and sewer, even though there were based on our rate study. We talked about increases on the water and the sewer, but you told me to come back later. So do you still want to come back in June on that issue?
I think we should once we
Okay.
see, I mean, unless there's any objections from anybody else, I don't want to decide for 5 people.
No, I'm good with June.
I don't
Me too.
think you can do anything till you find out what Lansing's going to do in a couple weeks.
Right.
It'd be a nightmare to try to guess what they're going to do, and you never know what they're going to do tomorrow. So if everybody's good with it, I'd still like to look at it again in June.
Okay.
Okay. We don't need any more public hearings. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve Resolution 1220, approving the fiscal year 2021 budget as presented?
I will make that motion.
I'll support.
Any other questions for Mike? I do want to say, Mike, I think you did a great job considering all the stuff that came on your plate right there at the last minute. So I appreciate it.
I like I appreciate you keeping us up to date with all this stuff that's changing every day.
It changes every day.
All right, motion and a second. Susie?
Councilmember Yankovic,
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
All right, that is everybody. Item E is ordinance 20-20. Mike again?
Yes. In April, the city administration came to the city council to discuss commercial waste haulers violating our noise ordinances as they were handling their routes very early in the morning. Residents adjacent to some of these businesses were complaining of this practice. We asked at the time to consider modifications to the noise ordinance and were directed by council to come back with an ordinance to approve. Since then, Chief Buechel and I have been working with Jessica Wood to modify the ordinance to accommodate this. Ms. Wood looked at the ordinances and only amended section 1136 of the waste hauler ordinance. In the ordinance that was modified, it is set that all waste haulers can pick up the city between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. daily. We did not amend the noise ordinance because after reading it, it is probably unnecessary. The noise ordinance is a bit more generalized, and there may be reasons beyond noise why waste hauling is limited to the hours above. Noise ordinances are usually a poor tool to enforce this, and since waste haulers must be licensed in the city, a quicker remedy for the city would be to terminate hauler's license for excessive violations of the article of the ordinance. In the ordinance, I've attached a copy of the ordinance for your review, and I'm recommending the city council approve ordinance 20-02 as presented.
Now, this is just a cleanup of everything we talked about before, right?
Correct.
To get the noise down in the neighborhoods.
Yeah, and the only thing we did was we added the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. to the ordinance. It's the only thing that was done.
Wasn't there a truck coming at like 4:30 or something? Isn't that?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
originally what sparked
Steve
it.
can add. Steve can speak to that. Let me unmute him.
Nope.
There
All
we
right, am I unmuted now?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it was between 4:30 and 4:45 on Tuesday mornings that the truck was coming, so that was the big issue. And of course, I reached out to all the trash haulers, and they were all in denial. And I've been having a cruiser sit out there to actually catch the violator around that time, and they should be out there again tomorrow morning. And hopefully, because of the coronavirus situation, they haven't been picking up weekly. So it's been sporadic on when that dumpster's been being emptied.
And the other one, you're comfortable with leaving it alone and just keeping track of violations?
I am.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike or Steve before we put Steve back on mute? All right, motion to approve ordinance 20-20, a revision to section 1136.
I'll make
Mr.
that
Mayor,
approve ordinance 20-02.
Mike, did you have something else?
yeah, I was just gonna let you know it's 20-02.
Yeah, 20-02.
Right.
Yep. All right,
I'll make-
Jim's motion. Anybody want to support Jim?
I'll support.
Yeah, I don't want to support Jim.
Well, you don't have to now. Susie?
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
All right. Where are we at? Item F, work share program. Mike?
Yes, as you know, the city of Lowell is projected to lose over $160,000 in revenue throughout the city due to the COVID-19 pandemic. There is potential for the city to lose much more than projected depending on how this crisis pans out. Since March 23rd, 2020, the city of Lowell has made staffing modifications to comply with Governor Gretchen Whitmer's stay-at-home order. At this point, the city has been trying to do everything we can to keep our full-time staff gainfully employed. I am proposing to furlough 15 of our 19 full-time employees to 80% of their hourly pay. I will propose the city continue to provide all benefits as we do currently. MERS service credit would be counted in full. However, during the time of furlough, MERS will only count what the city pays each employee and base that towards each employee's final average compensation, as it will be reduced slightly. I will be furloughed also if this is implemented. The water treatment employees and the 2 employees set to retire on July 31st, 2020 would not be furloughed. Every other full-time city employee would be. The city would enroll each employee to be eligible for the Michigan Work-Share program. This is a supplemental unemployment insurance program. This means to offset their pay, they will be eligible for a 20% share of the weekly unemployment allocation of $362 per week. This program is put in place for government, nonprofit organizations, businesses, and corporations. This allows for the entity to furlough a larger amount of employees and offset their pay reduction and reduce massive layoffs. In addition to the Work-Share program, each employee would be eligible for unemployment benefits in the amount of $600 per week. This program, which was signed by President Trump, is currently in place until July 31st, 2020. During this time period, we are anticipating that in all cases, furloughed employees will receive at least full income replacement and perhaps additional sums beyond that. The city alone is not alone in implementing the Work-Share program. The city of Muskegon, city of Kalamazoo, city of North Muskegon, city of Ithaca, city of Portland, city of Livonia, city of Ann Arbor. I believe the city of Grand Rapids is looking at implementing this week. The state of Michigan, they've all implemented this program in some way or form. With the current situation and the additional 600 per week in play, it is being sold, and this is actually coming from the governor's office. It's being sold as a win-win for the employee and the employer. If the city council is supportive of this furlough until July 31st, 2020, the city will reduce $45,000 in payroll costs in an 11-week period. If the federal government chooses to continue the $600 per week pay beyond July 31st, the city can continue to participate in the program, and you could possibly reduce more. I personally do not foresee the city getting much assistance from the state and federal government regarding our revenue losses. The state, as I stated before, the state of Michigan has a $3 billion decline in both this current fiscal year and the next that they're going to deal with, and I anticipate them reducing payments to counties, cities, villages, and townships in every way they can. This might be the only assistance we may be available to. Personally, this is the most bizarre government program I have ever seen and is by no means sustainable. However, there is a significant savings to the city, and I have a fiscal responsibility to present this to you for your consideration. I am concerned, though, that this is going to be treated like how larger corporations are taking the federal assistance from small businesses who are in greater need of the assistance. I understand that's a legitimate possibility, but where I sit, I believe we have to look at every unturned stone in dealing with this, and I know other cities are doing this, along with the state of Michigan. How would this work for the employee? All hourly employees can only work 32 hours per week. Anything over 32 hours will negatively impact the unemployment payout. Salaried employees are still responsible for getting their tasks to complete, but if we were to do so in a 32-hour-a-week situation, that is allowable. For the DPW employees impacted by this, if approved, their schedule would be Monday through Thursday. In the event the on-call employee will have hours reduced during the week to make sure one doesn't go over 32 hours in the event they are called out. Police officers will work 32 hours a week, and their shifts will be offset by our part-time police officer staff. City Hall will be placed on 2 teams. Team A would work Monday through Thursday. Team B would work Tuesday through Friday and shift each other week as we have Friday off. Want to make it very clear that during the 32 hours a week, we will be handling the most priority things that we would have to deal with in our tasks. The more proactive things that we do throughout the week, we probably will have to possibly curb those to the side for a period of time while this pans out, if you chose to move forward. Will employees have to file unemployment claims? I know everybody has probably heard all of the issues with attempting to sign up for unemployment. This was also a concern of mine. The way the Work-Share program works is the employer handles all aspects of managing the unemployment claim. While we have yet to implement, the city has already enrolled each employee who will be furloughed for benefits, and the city has already been approved by the state for the program. The only step the impacted employee has to take is that in the next few weeks, they will receive a letter asking where they want their benefits deposited. They will need to respond to the number given to them to provide that. And the city has to certify each week that the employee worked 32 hours and the claims are processed. Lori Gerard and I will be responsible for that task. How long will this last? The plan is for this to continue until July 31st, 2020. However, if President Trump and the federal government extend the $600 a week payout, we could consider this longer. However, if we are having difficulty in getting unemployment claims paid or unemployment runs out, we will end this sooner and reevaluate. I've approached both unions of this plan and they are supportive and are going to work with me on the logistical issues that may come up. I want to defend the employees in this aspect. They did not ask for this. This is something that was actually presented to me in a webinar I was involved with the governor, and that's where I learned of it. How long will this last? The plan is for this to, I'm sorry, I already read that. No, I didn't. How long will this last?
Yeah, you did.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
you
didn't I?
did.
Oh, okay, my bad. These decisions are not easy, but this provides an immediate savings which could help prevent complete layoffs or eliminating departments of the city, which I've already presented for you to consider. Look forward to concluding this furlough as soon as possible based on the city's budget, operational needs, applicable government regulations or directives and the like. While one could argue that this could fall solely on the city manager to make this decision and move forward, I felt the need to involve the city council in this if we move forward rather than me just implementing it. I recommend the Lowell City Council approve the furloughs of the employees as presented.
All right, let's unpack it. First of all, does anybody have any questions for Mike?
How does this affect any vacation time, sick time, personal time during that till July 31st?
It doesn't in fact, they would still earn it and they could still use it towards their 32 hours is how that works.
Okay.
Greg?
Are you 100% sure that this doesn't affect our unemployment insurance account? That this won't be money that we need to get back in to get our account back to the level?
My understanding is our unemployment insurance count is fine. We don't have any issues with it. That has not been indicated to me. I could also look into that for further clarification.
Because generally you need to, granted the city has never laid anybody off, but as a business owner, once your account is drawn on, then you need to replenish it. So I think there's a good putting this money back.
Okay. I can look into that.
Anything else? I gotta say,
I have Steve Donkersloot wants to say something.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Let me unmute him.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
In regards to unemployment, I'm not sure if this is different than other unemployment situations. The way at least local government unemployment accounts work, Greg, we don't actually pay in as a percentage of, salary and build up this balance of money. We, at least historically for Low Light and Power, we've had unemployment situations where the employer, so Low Light and Power, has reimbursed dollar for dollar what was actually paid out to the now unemployed employee. So, if somebody got $362 a week, Low Light and Power would have to pay that $362, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yep.
But I'm not sure if this program is different.
Greg?
Yeah, that's my concern, is that this money gets paid out and then it needs to be paid back. The other thing, we're not really doing anything as a city to help local businesses on Main Street. I know we're looking out for ourselves as a city and we need to do that, but there is just something fundamentally wrong working 20% less and getting paid 50% more. The $600 was meant for people that are laid off full time, not 1 day a week. And just because other cities are doing this, this is just a money grab that is wrong on multiple levels.
Anybody else have any thoughts on it?
Initially, my thoughts were that since we don't seem to have much benefits trickle down to us from the feds or from Lansing, it appeals to me. I would like if Mike could take a few minutes. I know there's probably no way you can get 100% assurance because everything's changing all the time, but if you could look into whether or not we have to repay this, that's a frightening thought, because what's the point?
Right. That's not something I was aware of, but I can look into that. And like I said, you don't have to do this. This is not something you have to do. This was an option. I had the fiscal responsibility to present it to you. It's in your, however you want to do it. I'm good either way.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's an opportunity when we're about to get revenue completely slashed, and we were already struggling for street money and upkeep money and repair money and sidewalk money and all this other stuff to get a cash infusion of 45 grand or whatever it was. I have a hard time saying no to any money coming in if it doesn't account for a loss or a diminish in services. Greg.
It's not free money. The $600 our kids and our grandkids and the rest of us are going to have to pay back. The unemployment is fine, and we're already cut to the bone supposedly, but as long as this free money's out there, well, we'll operate at 80% for a while. I guess that leads us to believe that there's positions that won't need to be refilled when people retire. Then we can get by on 80% of labor.
Mayor DeVore,
Yeah, Sue,
I do have some public comments to read into record too when you're ready for that.
go ahead.
Okay. This one is from Holly Christopher, and she is stating that she is a city resident. I saw your post about furloughing city employees. In my opinion, now is not the time to reduce pay for anyone. I don't think this city should be trying to save money this way. I'm happy to pay my taxes so that all city employees can continue to care for themselves and their families. I do not wish to post on Facebook because it's a cesspool of fighting right now. I did try to message the city as a whole on Facebook, but apparently they don't have Messenger set up. Thank you and have a good night, Holly. And then my last comment is, let's see, I'm contacting you in regards to the city of Lowell furloughing 15 of their employees 1 day a week to save the city expenses, but in turn allow city employees the opportunity to share in the federal PUA $600 stimulus. No, 1,000 times no, this is wrong. It is our own local government showcasing the loopholes in the Fed stimulus and taking advantage of it. Shame on the person who proposed this. The city should lead by example. There is no litmus test for the $600 and it is being abused. People do not want to go back to work and won't as long as $600 Fed unemployment is active. I am a local business owner. We have operations in the city of Lowell. I have 2 jobs opening currently posted on Indeed and can't get a response. These are not low-paying jobs. They pay $500K a year, plus a year. I have talked with other business owners in the same predicament. If the city of Lowell is proposing this, then get rid of the 20% of your workforce and keep the remaining at full-time. By suggesting this, the city just admitted that they can easily cut 20% fat from their staffing budget. Eric Shellhaus, Red Creek Waste Services.
Sue, can I ask you to check that? Did it say 500K or 50K?
50K.
Okay.
Oh, because you had Jim's attention for a minute. I saw him start typing up his
It is
resume.
50K
Yeah.
plus.
Close that
I thought
resume
it was-
window, Jim. You're gonna stay right where you're at.
Sorry, I'm already sent. I already.
Mr. Mayor, I believe Steve wants to add something. Steve Donkersloot.
Steve.
Yeah, I do want to clarify, I don't want to confuse people. There's, I'm only looking at it from a math financial standpoint. If the city did have to repay the unemployment, like I suggested, could be possible, they still would be in a financial gain. And the quick example that I just typed up, you have somebody making $25 an hour, the city would save, $215 with FICA on that employee, and then only have to reimburse the state $72, on unemployment. So there would still be a financial gain of, in that example, $143 roughly. So I just didn't want to confuse the council by saying the incomplete savings would be reimbursed to the state, just a portion of it potentially. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And Mike, that's something, the payback, you can bring that back to us at our next meeting, correct? And
Sure.
have an answer?
Sure.
Would the next meeting be too late?
So every week up until this point, it's $4,000 or less a week. So but the math rolls out. You're probably, that $45,000 now is probably about $38,000, and then, maybe that's not worth it. I don't know, but it's the longer. If you table this, at the end, it's going to be less money to the point where there's really no incentive to do it.
Greg.
Yes, Greg.
I believe in looking at this, that after the unemployment benefit and the $6 federal, that most employees will see close to a $400 to $500 a week raise. I believe the smallest increase would be $250 a week.
Correct. Correct.
Well, isn't that in line with what is, I don't think we're offering anything to the city that regular people are not taking advantage of or making them availing themselves of it. So yeah. I don't think it's in line with the federal program anyway.
Right. I realize this is stupid money, but where I sit with the budget, I got to present this to you one way or another. We do have somebody who raised their hand, Mike. I can unmute them.
Yeah, go ahead.
It'll be, hang on. Oh, crap. Yeah. Hang on. Trying to unmute him. Brad, you there?
I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Nice. Glad to be a part of this tonight. Been watching since the get-go. And I just want to give my 2 cents on what I read as far as the proposal went.
Okay, Brad, can we just get your name and address first, like a public comment?
Yeah, no problem. It's Bradley Wade, 12991 Ryan Ridge, Lowell, Michigan.
Thank you.
So based on what the city manager has proposed, what I had written on social media and since removed because of the amount of response I got was, so the city manager, correct me if I'm wrong, is requesting to cut the city employees' hours by 20% or an equivalent of 1 day a week. But in turn, they will line their pockets with $600 for the PUA fund and $72 a week from the federal government, or correct me, PUA from $600, the $72 is unemployment. They're going to bank more money than they were working 40 hours a week. That's equivalent to taking $672 a day pay for having a day off. Now, like Greg said, only to have myself and my children and my grandchildren have to pay this money back. This is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. I believe that Lowell has always been based on honesty. It's been based on loyalty and commitment to the community. This request sounds like an announcement to the people and to our community at their attempt of thievery from the federal government. It's ridiculous. This is not what Lowell needs. Lowell does not need to be put and smeared on television and on news for city employees collecting the PUA money, just taking one day off a week. It's an embarrassment of a notion, and I say no. It's just my 2 cents. I just live here, and I have lived here for many years, but I think it's a very, very bad idea. Done.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
All right, now, anybody else wanna, Mike, there's no more comment, just
I
Brad?
don't see anything.
Okay. And Susie, you read everything that you had?
Yes, I have everything read.
All right, any other council comments? Is there anybody that would like to make the motion to approve the city employee furlough? Is there anybody that wants to make a motion to table it for 2 weeks and talk about it again? All right, with no motion and no table, it is dead on arrival.
Okay.
I do think Mike did have a responsibility to bring it to us.
Yep.
So loyalty and all that stuff that Brad said, I 100% agree with it. And that's what that community is about. And that's why I live here. But it's also Mike's responsibility to show us where we can save money in a time when all the state's going to do is put their foot on our neck. So Mike had a responsibility to bring it to us and report both sides of it. And that's exactly what he did. And I commend him for it. So before we go on the internet talking about the city's trying to game the system, let's look at it for exactly what it is. An opportunity that Mike brought to us and we voted on based on what we thought the community would want. So I'm sure it'll be on Facebook later anyway, but there's nothing I can do about that. Item G is the Memorial Day festivities. Mike?
Yes. Did somebody have anything else to say before I move on to that? I thought someone did.
I'm good.
Okay, moving on. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this is forcing changes to our annual Memorial Day events. This being said, the current stay-at-home executive order from Governor Whitmer is giving city administration difficulty in how to handle the Memorial Day remembrances. I've been in contact with Herm Westrate, who is the commander of the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 8303. He has informed me that the parade has been canceled. They are required to utilize Oakwood Cemetery on Memorial Day and do so without putting the public at risk. They would like to read the names and allow businesses and organizations to present flowers at the Civil War Monument. There would also be an honor guard to render a rifle salute before the playing of taps. This is similar to their normal event. They would limit the number of attendees to an appropriate number and require 6 feet of distance between all people. If this isn't acceptable to the city, then at minimum, they would like to allow for the rifle squad, taps being paid, and the leadership of the VFW and American Legion with the ceremony no longer than 30 minutes. Jessica Wood and I have reviewed Executive Order 2020-77, and it clearly does not allow this activity, and we cannot categorize it into one of the 3 functions allowable in the executive order. Those functions allowable as defined in the EO would be a necessary government function, critical infrastructure, or minimum basic operation. We cannot find a way to articulate this event in any of these categories. The one area we might, and this could be a stretch, is that funerals are allowed if there are less than 10 people gathered. Funerals are loosely defined in the executive order. So since this is a gathering to honor soldiers who have died fighting for our nation, we believe this is allowable as long as no more than 10 people are at the event. Any patrons beyond 10 would technically violate the executive order. Unfortunately, Governor Whitner has not provided any guidance on this matter. Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker has stated his interpretation is the same we found. I know there is a legal case between our legislature and governor pertaining to the validity of the executive orders issued. Until a judge rules otherwise, these orders are valid on their face. I cannot recommend anything outside the scope. The city charter requires me to follow all those laws and ordinances. These are deemed as emergency laws at this time. However, I guess you have the option to not follow the executive order and allow the event as you normally do. I do not know what the ramifications would be if you didn't follow the executive order and allowed the VFW and American Legion to operate as you would normally. I could see the possibility of revenue sharing or other financial opportunities that's currently available to the city not be given to those communities who violate the executive orders. I can tell you, for example, this is already happening in Illinois. I don't know what'll happen here. These executive orders have been very difficult for me and my staff to decipher in many of these instances, and I need your guidance on how you'd like this matter handled.
Well, they're difficult to decipher no matter what you do. I mean, it's not difficult. I'd have a hard time, number one, telling them no. I have a hard time, number two, thinking that of all the people violating this order and their protests and they're doing whatever they want so publicly, that we would fall on a retribution sword, because I think it would be political suicide for anybody who came after us. Greg.
What defines a group? I mean, normally they have a taps player off in the distance.
Steve's got your
gun
answer.
salute. How far apart?
When I spoke to the prosecutor last week, he said that he considered this a funeral and he had no intentions on bringing any charges on an honor guard being up there. He said where you would get into the situation is if you had more than the 10 people. So I'm all in favor of the honor guard being up there with their minimal staffing, and the prosecutors on board too, that this is not going to be an issue.
Thank you.
Well, I think you're not going to have the parade crowd, right, that follows.
Correct.
Correct.
You're not going to have the high school band, I would imagine. I think it would be up to them to limit it, and we would kind of wash our hands of it, but I have such a hard time telling them no, because I've been to these for the last 15 years, and they're huge events.
Right.
So they're already doing a major service.
And I have a hard
fighting
time
us on anything else.
I have a hard time with this because I spoke last year, and I mean, I am very concerned about the veterans, and but you know, I need clarity. You know, I want to make sure I want to find a way to have it. Let's put it that way.
I got to be honest with you here, and from my end, I've been the #1 proponent of the stay home, stay safe deal. Everyone knows that. I'm all about it, probably to a fault. But if they called me and asked me to come speak like I did 2 years ago, I wouldn't hesitate to do it. With a mask on, of course, whatever. But I don't want to tell them no, and I don't think... I think they're responsible enough to know that they're being allowed to do something that's borderline. I'm sure you could spin it either way if that's what you felt like you wanted to do.
Right.
So if they're going to be responsible with it, I trust them to be responsible with it. You're not talking about a block party or a house party or, you know, food trucks or any of that, carnival rides. I trust them to be responsible with it, and I personally think we should allow them to do it and follow the order as they see fit.
I have never been in the military. My little brother was a Marine. I have to believe that they would have a certain amount of respect for the fact of chain of command. I'm not comfortable standing out in the, I don't like this being presented with this at all. I mean,
I don't either.
This is a terrible decision, but can we just, if they kept it to the honor guard and the taps player, that's not a crowd of people, is it? Their honor guard's usually half a dozen people, isn't it?
Usually, yeah.
I got an idea. I live right here. If they would like to put the honor guard, the taps player, whatever into my side yard, I would love to have them, and I'll extend that to them. That way it doesn't put anything more at risk out there in the cemetery. And that should help. And I'm all for to tell them they can't.
All right. Does anybody here want to tell them no?
No.
No.
I trust them to do what they say they're going to do. Steve, you trust them to do what they say they're going to do? Chief?
Yeah, I do. And I'm just going to throw out, there's been 92 orders now as of today. If we go back to like the first order back in March, the safest place is outdoors in sunlight. The sunlight kills the virus. And if they're 10 feet apart, you could put 100 people in that cemetery and they could social distance all day long. So that's just my 2 cents and a son of an Army veteran.
Mike, does this big pile of vagueness give you a proper direction on what to do here?
I think so.
Okay. Does anybody else?
Basically, we're basically allowing the honor guard and the taps.
I trust them.
Yeah.
I have no. Okay, that's fine. I have no issue with that. I just wanted to bring it to you because needed clarification.
I think the council trusts them, and if the people in charge of enforcing our laws are comfortable with it, I don't think we're in any position to tell the veterans or the chief of police that we know more than them. Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Board and commission reports. Raise your hand if you have one. Greg.
The Lara board met on the 13th by Zoom, and we have one item that kind of requires council approval. We have some new members on the Lara board, some people around a little bit. Amanda Rogers would like to come on from Lowell Township. Laura Garrison would come on from the city of Lowell. She lives on G Drive side. And Tom Gosiak, Gossia. Sorry, Tom, I butchered your name. But he would be the at-large representative. So I believe the council needs to approve new members on the Lara board. Other than the 3 new members, we did get an update from Dave Austin that he has answered questions on the DNR grant, MDOT grant that were submitted on first. We're still trying to move forward on the trail through Lowell, but this is obviously complicated.
All right, do we need board and committee applications for the Lara board, Susie?
No, I don't believe we do. I just received an email from Betsy just asking for a motion to approve these people.
Okay, and we can approve the township member, or does Jerry and his people have to do that?
They will do that. In your packet, I included the 2 people that we need approval from you.
All right, Greg, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Susie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's in on the page with all of the other boards and commissions that need to be reappointed.
Okay. Greg, did you want to make a motion then to appoint the 2 city members to the Lara board?
Sure, I would. And the township has already acted on it for the.
Okay, so Amanda's on there then?
Yes.
Okay.
Make a motion
Greg,
to bring on Laura Garrison and Tom Gosiak.
I'll support.
Any other discussion? Susie?
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic,
Yes, and I'd like to thank them for getting involved.
100%.
Councilmember Chambers
Yes.
and Councilmember Campbell.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Greg. Anybody else with a Board or Commission report?
Me.
I can't see you. Marty, go ahead.
Put me on the right channel, Michael.
No, I blocked you on purpose.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Planning Commission, it was a long one. We went just south of 3 hours. We had 2 new recreational marijuana facilities come before us. One had to have some zoning changes, special zoning to make things. Both of them got approved. And we have to do it again because we had an issue. We have to do parts of it again. We had an issue with the Zoom page. Some people got the wrong information. So we're gonna hit the highlights at our next one and basically redo it, but we don't have to go through it all. And that was it.
All right. Jim or Cliff?
No.
Nope.
All right, real quick for the fire authority, no meeting in May, but we did get an email today from the consultant that we brought on. He just requested the last item he needs. He's been unable to get some of the stuff because of the pandemic, but he's working really hard to get it done. So I'm hoping by the next fire authority meeting, it'll be presented to us and then I can bring it back, share it with you guys there. Now, before monthly reports, Jim, can you take over the rest of this thing? I have to step away.
Yeah.
Okay. Monthly reports, Jim, I'm gonna turn the meeting over to you.
Okay. Mike, did we have our manager report yet?
No, I can give it right now.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
First off, I want to thank Meds Cafe for their generous donation to the fire authority for the boat. There was a news story on Wood TV regarding Meds Cafe, and in the story there was a comment made that the city of Lowell is receiving a lot of money in taxes as regard to their sales. That is factually incorrect at this time. I did reach out to their owner, and he apologized for the error, and he recognized that wasn't exactly the case. So we did discuss that. I've already talked about the sales tax issue. I'm not gonna go over it again. I was informed today that the city was our waiver for the PA 202, which is the unfunded pension liability, with having to file the corrective action plan. They are not going to require us to file a corrective action plan currently. So that was a relief. I have the restaurant applications for the outdoor seating. I do have an application in place. I just need to have the insurance company take a look at it real fast, and then I can distribute it to the restaurants. And I need direction on your next council meeting. Your next council meeting is June 1st. I don't know what the stay-at-home order is what it's gonna be. You have the option if you want to go back to normal. You can. I just want some direction on how you want to handle that meeting.
Well, if she extends it, Mike, we have to stay on Zoom anyway, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
You actually right now, one of her executive orders does allow the meetings to go till, I believe, July 30th.
Okay. I would like it if we could be back in chamber, but I find on Zoom right now, we're getting more people paying attention and following along, which I think is a good thing. So I guess with that being said, I would like at least one more on Zoom. We get a lot of people on. I mean, we have even Liz Baker with us tonight, so that's pretty impressive.
Sounds like a good idea.
All right.
That's all I have.
Okay, I guess we already talked about appointments, so I guess we'll go next to council comments.
Greg's raising his
Greg?
hand.
Yep, I see that, Greg.
I will start out with council comments. I have one question. Mike, if you could unmute Dan's microphone. The cement work that was done downtown by Groundhog Excavating, it was kind of hard to tell immediately, but now that the rain has rinsed the coating off it, it is a long ways away from being the right color. It's just really wrong. Have you looked at that at all, Dan?
Steve, you got to unmute him.
Oh, sorry.
Steve's the host of the meeting now.
Okay.
All right, hang on.
Go to participants, Dan Zarnecki.
I'm working on it.
Welcome to the big chair, Steve.
Yeah. I was wondering who Peter Pan was, so that was okay. Oh, it said I unmuted him.
He's unmuted.
All right.
I have not looked at it today after all the rain that we've had over the weekend. The color will have an issue at first with their material they put on that coating for the putting the stamp on there. I'll go take a look at it, what they have. They tried to match it to the best that they could with the info that they had. They came down and took some, I don't know if they took a piece of it or pictures of it, went to the concrete supplier and said, this is what we have to match. So let me take a look at what the stamp powder they put on there was and see what's going on with that.
Great.
Thank you. Cliff, anything? Oh, Greg, did you have something?
Encourage everybody to keep practicing with their masks. I know there's a lot of speculation whether masks work or not, but I think it's a thing of respect for other people. It limits the plume of your breath, how far it goes. And I think we need to respect others and follow laws as much as we can. Get back to a new place. Thank you.
Cliff?
I'm good, thank you.
Marty?
So I brought up the process to start helping our local restaurants. And I was with the downtown merchants on their Zoom meeting last Friday, and we talked about it and a lot of different things. It'd be nice now if we could do something to help our local merchants. And they don't really want a lot. What they would like to do is have like a second sign that they could do more advertising for their business and put it out front. I know we currently have some issues with that, but it'd be nice if until October we could kind of suspend that. These signs are kind of pricey and expensive for us. We're all getting back open. A little bit more advertisement. I do think though that we need to police how much distance is between the signs, maybe 6 feet or something like that. But I just want to bring that up that we're doing good. We're helping the restaurants. Now we need to help the rest of our downtown. So,
Marty, are sandwich boards or what do you call them?
Sandwich boards. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, like a second one to be put out for some more advertising. Not the big ones, not like the Heroes work here, nothing that size, but more like the average, 18 by 24 sandwich boards, put them out. We can do a little bit more advertisement. We can help promote our city a little bit better. And that's really what the merchants would like to do. And they didn't have a problem with helping the restaurants. They understand that the restaurants bring in people to shop our downtown and, so that's kind of what I'd like to see us move forward with now. Like I said, run it till end of October. That'd be a great help.
Can I get some information and report back for something for the next meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. For that, I have absolutely no comments tonight. So with that, I'll look for a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
You have to state the reason.
Oh, pursuant to 15.268, Section 8 of the Opening Meetings Act for strategy and negotiation sessions connected with negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Guess with that, we'll go into closed session.
Then we
I
have
go
to
to-
do a-
Call
Oh, we have to have
Yeah.
a roll call. Susie, go ahead.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic,
Yes, even though it's getting close to my bedtime.
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
and Mayor DeVore is still absent.
Yes.
All righty.
So we'll go to the other channel I gave you.
Okay, I'll have to look that up, what it is.
Okay, if you don't have it, I will send you the meeting ID.
Are you gonna send it on our tablets?
I'll text it to all of you.
Okay.
I
Okay,
don't have either, Mike.
okay, I gotta go get my phone.
Oh, everybody's bailing on me. I was gonna play Name That Tune with the people that was left.
No, you're
Nope.
on your
Yeah, I have to stay